Good evening, everybody. My name is Scott Jacobs, and you're listening to Juiced Sports Radio. And joining me today to break down the 2012 NFL Draft is Juiced Sports NFL expert Mike Kaye. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Scott.
Andrew Luck has been officially selected by the Indianapolis Colts as their first overall pick. He will be their new Peyton Manning. Can he live up to the hype?
I think Andrew Luck can live up to the hype. I think that his ceiling is high, but the great thing about him is his floor is very high as well. So you know what you're basically getting with him. At worst, I've compared him to a Carson Palmer with mobility as his worst projection. But at his best projection, he's Aaron Rodgers with more mobility.
That's a pretty good projection. Obviously, the other big quarterback in this draft is Heisman winner out of Baylor, Robert Griffin III. He's got his Superman socks. Is he better than Andrew Luck?
I think that Robert Griffin III has the ability to be better than Andrew Luck. The only problem is that he, like I talked about with Andrew Luck, about his floor, I think he's got a much lower floor than Andrew Luck. His ceiling is extremely high, but if he can't put all the tools together, then he might be in trouble. Remember, he comes from a spread offense where it's one or two reads, or you run. Andrew Luck comes from a pro-style offense, so he's already familiar with what he's facing in the pros. He comes to a Colts team that I believe will build their offense around him. The Shanahans in Washington aren't known for adjusting to their quarterback, as Donovan McNabb said. So I think that while Griffin has all the tools to be better, it's all a matter of him being nurtured and taught how to play the NFL game.
Who's the most underrated player in the NFL draft?
That's a good question, Scott. The most underrated player, I believe, is Mississippi State defensive tackle Fletcher Cox. While everybody's ranking Justin Blackmon and Trent Richardson and all these guys in the top 6, they're forgetting that Cox is essentially the second best defensive player on the board. He's also the best defensive lineman by far in this class. He's got the ability to rush the passer. He's a great run stopper. He can play anywhere on the defensive line. If he can play the 5 technique in a 3-4. He can play defensive tackle in a 4-3. He can even play defensive end in a 4-3. So he's got the ability to move all around the line. He comes from the SEC where he's faced premium competition. I think that he will inevitably be one of the better picks in this draft.
You've got Fletcher Cox, highly rated. Who's the most overrated player in the draft?
I would say Quentin Coples. He's got a great piece of tape on him from 2010, but last year he really, really struggled. He's got a reputation of having a very slow motor, meaning he kind of gives up on plays. He only goes one speed. He's not going to always bull rush, and he's not going to really get at the passer. So he's the type of guy that you're really going to have to monitor. You're going to have a coach that's really constantly on him and making sure that he is ready to go and start for you and get 10 sacks a year. Because right now he's got a lot of concerns about his ability to rush the passer and his overall love for the game.
Who's going to be the better quarterback when it's all said and done, Ryan Tannehill or Brandon Weeden?
I think Brandon Weeden immediately would be the best quarterback because of his age and his maturity and his arm strength and coming from a pro-style offense. But then you have Tannehill, who could really develop. He's got the tools to be a very, very good quarterback. So I think it just depends on which teams the players go to. If Weeden goes to a team that's not known for developing quarterbacks, he might struggle. If Tannehill is to be forced in to play relatively quickly, like Jimmy Clausen was, I don't think that he'll succeed because once you get it out there, like Ponder, if you get hit too much, it tweaks your entire game.
Who's a small school guy that not many people are talking about that you like to have a big impact in the NFL?
My favorite player in the entire draft is Bobby Wagner out of Utah State. He's really short for a Sam linebacker. He's 6 foot, but he's got the bulk to play all 3 linebacker positions. They even had him rush the passer at Utah State. He can come off the edge. He can set the edge. He can cover tight ends. He can play. He'll be a three-down linebacker. Probably he's going to go in the early to mid-second round. I think he's got the talent and ability to be a first-round pick. He did miss the combine with some ankle injuries. He was the Senior Bowl MVP on defense. He's got a great pedigree, and I think you're going to see a lot of really great players come out of Utah State. He's a real leader, and I think he can be your starting Sam or middle linebacker for the next 10 years.
Who do you look at as a guy who will probably fall out of the first round but picked up in the second round because of maybe character issues or an injury he sustained, who will be an excellent NFL player?
Scott, I'd say Janoris Jenkins. He played at Florida, had to transfer to Northern Alabama because of a love for weed. Now we're finding out that he's got numerous kids from numerous different mothers, and he possibly continued to smoke weed at North Alabama. I just think it shows a lack of responsibility on his part, and I think teams will take that into account. I mean, you don't want to be a team that has to dish out, premature payments to a guy because he's got to pay child support. You don't want to have to deal with the fact that if he fails to drug test, he's suspended. So you need to really look into his background. He's got all the talent in the world. He'd be a top 10 pick if he had none of these issues. But I think the irresponsibility overweighs his talent in this round, in the first round, and I think he'll be a mid-second round pick.
Let's get you out on this one. We've seen some undrafted players spark NFL teams to great success. Who's a guy completely off the board that could help a team out and maybe not even get drafted this year?
I think Vontaze Burfict out of Arizona State could be one of those guys. Granted, he hasn't looked all that great on film, and, people are constantly coming out and complaining about the guy and saying he's going to slide and possibly is undraftable. But let's not forget, before the season started this year, he was projected by everyone to be a top 10 pick at middle linebacker. I think that if he's picked up by a team that has a good set of linebackers that are veterans, a team like the Chargers, who have Sean Phillips and Takeo Spikes, or San Francisco, who has Navarro Bowman and Patrick Willis, the ideal spot for him would be probably Baltimore, where Ray Lewis is. So you gotta put talent around him and veterans around him that are character guys. Now, I know people wouldn't go out of their way to call Ray Lewis a character guy, but over the last 10 years, he's kind of wiped the delinquency out of his character, I guess you could say. So I think he's a guy that really, if he's put in the right situation, he could be a nice two-down linebacker for you. I don't see him playing all three downs. I don't see him as much of a starter. But, I think he can be a quality player.
That's your NFL draft preview, Mike Kaye. Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
And remember, subscribe to Juiced Sports. My name is Scott Jacobs. Enjoy the draft. Good night, everybody.